We are finally starting to see some positive gains across the board for crypto, and of course, Hedera is not shy to this at all. But the big thing that everyone is focused on is this the moment that we start to see the big breakout to, much, higher highs and even new all-time highs for a lot of these crypto projects like, of course, HBAR. And in this video, I will answer that question, but I also want to talk about why Hedera will be much larger this cycle than ever before. But also, I want to put a spotlight on the DeFi side around Hedera as well. So with that being said, sit back, relax. Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So yeah, first and foremost, the entire market just woke up over the last 48 hours. And of course, if we look at the 7-day span on HBAR, it is up over 17%. Now, it's nothing significant because on the 1 month, we are still down about 4%. But as you guys can see here, just going off of this view of the chart, we now have higher highs on the lower time frame, which is very good because that means that the lower time frame structure is bullish. But we want to see the higher time frame structure also break into a bullish territory. But the good news is that volume is up well over 68%. We're sitting at about roughly $276 million worth of 24-hour trading volume, and a lot more attention is on crypto at this point, which means we could very well run much higher here going forward, which I do expect. And if you guys did miss the noon video, definitely go check that out because I did outline a lot about, not just XRP, but the entire space onto, really kind of what to expect next. But outside of this, let's actually look at the chart. So this is what my HBAR chart looks like right now. I know it's a little bit cluttered, if you will, but the main reason for that being is because we do have some key levels that we want to actually see broken on this chart. Like I said, lower time frame structure, if we go to like the 4-hour, looks very good, right? We have these significant lows down here. So here's our first low, higher low, higher low, higher low. We've been making some very good, traction here on this chart to show us that, HBAR is not messing around. Even the highs, right? We have some highs back here, higher highs now. But the main thing that I'm focused on is, like I said, the higher time frame structure, because that's what really is important right now, because we could easily get ahead of ourselves and say, well, yeah, HBAR is extremely bullish here. We're going to the moon. We're going to, hit, $1, $2, $3. But the main thing is that we can't get too far ahead of ourselves and just, be openly bullish until we start to see a lot more movement and a lot more levels broken on these charts. The first key level here on HBAR is breaking over 19, almost 20 cents roughly. And the main thing that I'm looking at is the levels in which we so far held on. Like, for an example, this 13, almost 14 cent level that we closed on the weekly, which was the support going all the way back to the 2021 summer time frame. And if you guys were here during the summer of 2021, you already know that that was a pretty bearish time frame for crypto. But we did find support around that level, and we so far bounced off of it, which is why I'm looking at this next level around roughly like 20 cents to be broken. I want to see this level broken. I want to see us actually close over it on the weekly. We have about 4 days, 13 hours until we can actually close over this. I think by the time that this video does go live, it might be a little bit lower than 4 days and 13 hours, but still, we want to break over this, confirm a much larger expansion to the next key level, which is around like 26.5 cents. And then after that, we really kind of look at breaking, the highs from roughly like December and January. I know that I'm looking at this on the weekly. If we look at it on like the, lower time frame, like on the 3-day, sorry, let me go back to the three day. We could see it on the 3-day on why I'm looking at this level instead of like these lower levels here. I mainly want to break over the resistance zones that, gave us a lot of trouble, and we actually rejected heavily, off of. So this is the next key level, which is around like 36 cents. And then after that, yeah, I do think that the next target will be the all-time highs around 56, 57 cents. So, HBAR does look very good here. I just want to see a little bit more on the higher time frame structure. And ultimately, this 19 and like 3/4 of a cent level, this is where we probably see most of the problems, arise for HBAR, because there's so much resistance here. We tried to flip that support zone. the support zone from like February. And as you guys can see, this is on the 3-day chart. Okay, so these are 3-day candles here, and there is 6 of them. So 18 days worth of trading that was just trading against this 19, almost 20 cent level, and we rejected off of it. So this is going to be a very heavy level in which we are trying to attempt to break over. So give it a little bit of time. We might chop a little bit more here, but for the most part, HBAR still does look pretty good. And by the way, outside of the USD chart, I am focused more on the Bitcoin pair because this is where we really kind of watch for a much larger expansion. Again, key level here, we have it. We want to break over these support zones, which is acting as resistance, as you guys can see from the April 7th weekly candle. So far, we did hold resistance back from like April, May as support, which is very good to see. I want to see us kind of just chop a little bit more, you know, break to the upside, maybe chop to the downside a little bit, and then we finally get that big expansion to the upside and break out from this downtrend. Again, HBAR looks very good here. I just want to see the rest of the market really kind of wake up and provide a little bit more steam for altcoins like HBAR that are still kind of chopping against key levels of not only resistance, but also, you know, key levels of support that has now turned into resistance. So until Bitcoin does break to like 100K plus and we start to see Bitcoin dominance breaking down, I'm not expecting any significant moves on some of these charts like HBAR, of course, but anything could happen at any moment. This is crypto. You know, back in November, nobody was really kind of expecting, you know, crypto to be extremely bullish the way it was. And then all of a sudden, boom, we had that massive breakout happen. It could happen at any point in time, which is why I've always stated that you need to be prepared for when it does happen. You don't just prepare up to the point of when it happens. You need to be prepared for when it does happen. So make sure that, you know, you are aware of where we are at right now, cyclical wise. And, you know, Bitcoin dominance is still at significant highs while Bitcoin is still chopping to 100K. And I think that now is probably one of the best times to be focused on a lot of these altcoins, like, of course, HBAR. Now, outside of the charts, let's actually look at the DeFi side and the network activity around Hedera. So Zepsi recently made a post talking about account creation on Hedera and how it's on the rise. We actually see here account growth over the last roughly month. I mean, the account growth on Hedera has been growing rapidly, and this is because of ecosystem players. I've talked about this with, you know, a lot of the DeFi side, because DeFi definitely does bring in a lot of big players, but it's not just DeFi, right? It's gaming, it's the sports side. You know, sports gets overlooked completely in the space because they don't, like, a lot of people don't think that it, you know, amounts to anything of value for the network. But that's where a lot of people are kind of, I would say, confused a little bit, because, you know, right now we don't have massive retail participation in the space. I think that things like sports will lead to mass adoption. Like, if you can build something that people utilize and that it's, you know, for an example, connected back to things like UFC or karate combat. Karate combat is a great example. You will start to see accounts growing. You'll start to see more users. You'll also start to see more value transacted on the network. And I do think that that's where a lot of this account growth is coming from for Hedera, through, you know, gaming applications, through, you know, sports applications, and even, you know, just the entire ecosystem expanding over the last couple months. I mean, every single day, it's like something new is getting added to Hedera. So love to see this. And talking about DeFi, when we are looking at DeFi itself, this is what the DeFi side for Hedera, for the entire space looks like. And then I also do have Hedera open over here. So DeFi is back on the rise with the big spike in the market. No surprise there. We are starting to see a nice little gain here. Nothing too crazy just yet. It's a 7.28% bounce. So, you know, if your network, in this case, Hedera, was taking a big hit, which, you know, Hedera definitely did take a big hit in terms of TVL. They have yet to actually bounce back in a big way. But I do think that the overall moves around this space right now are a very good sign of what's to come for DeFi. So if if the network that you're really kind of watching, in this case Hedera, is starting to make a lot of strides around the DeFi side to improve DeFi on the network, then it will be very successful and we'll see a big amount of growth over the coming weeks. So when we are thinking about that, we are watching Hedera. We're watching this closely because, number one, DeFi on Hedera is already up about 7%. alongside the entire DeFi market, which is up about 7.28%. And the main thing is DEX volume. So I have been watching DEX volume over the last few months. Now, when we're thinking about this, April is almost wrapped up. It wasn't that great of a month for the DEX side, about roughly 133, almost 134 million dollars. Nothing too crazy, like for an example, back in January, which did almost $1 billion in DEX volume. But the fact that we're still making a lot of growth here and we're still starting to see, a big push to the upside of like 100 million plus for the DEX side, it's very good to see. I do expect a lot of these protocols on Hedera to grow over the next couple weeks. For an example, we're really kind of looking at, Sasha Swap, but also Bonzo. I think that, more and more participation of the DeFi side from Hedera, users is just going to become a lot more noticeable when we start to see those spikes in price. It's very simple, right? If the market's doing very good, then most likely the DeFi side is doing very good. And I could actually show you that with, the HBAR price and the TVL side. So, TVL really kind of trails price action closely, as you guys are aware from this chart. So when the market starts to bounce back, the entire DeFi side of the space really kind of bounces back. And, the same goes for even Hedera. But the main thing that I'm really kind of watching for is stablecoin growth, because stablecoins on Hedera, specifically Circle, right, USDC has been growing rapidly on Hedera. They've been expanding the market for USDC on Hedera through names like Coinbase and Binance and a few other ones like crypto.com. I think that this is very beneficial for Hedera, and we can actually see that stablecoins on Hedera now are well over $96.5 million. And just up until about roughly, 24 hours ago, it was about 81, almost $82 million. And we did see that massive jump of well over, like $15 million on Hedera. So again, this is a very good sign that when the market bounces back, we are going to see Hedera really climb in terms of the ranks around DeFi. And not to mention that Hedera has been making massive announcements over the last few weeks behind, the DeFi side. For an example, we're excited to announce that Linkpool.io has integrated with Hedera, introducing its enterprise-grade RPC services to help accelerate institutional RWA and DeFi applications on the network. And we do have down here that with Linkpool, their RPC services, the network now benefits from enhanced performance for dapps, seamless smart contract execution, and then cost-effective infrastructure. Now, we did get an update from Linkpool themselves, which is attention builders and dApp developers at HBAR Foundation. The Linkpool operated Hedera public endpoints are powering serious traffic, enabled 14,000 requests per second during peaks, over 225 million requests in the last 24 hours. Scalable, reliable, open, let's dive in. So when we are thinking about this, what we are starting to see here is a lot more dev traffic, a lot more dev activity, and a lot more dev moves being made around Hedera, which I did spotlight, recently. I talked about how Hedera's dev activity has been climbing in the ranks, rallying against big players like even XRP, Algo, and other large networks in the space. So it's only a matter of time until a lot more people find out about how bullish Hedera actually is, and they start locking in on how big it will be in terms of price action. I really do think that as we really kind of look at the ranks right now around crypto, at numbers like 18, 17 for HBAR, I do think that it's going to quickly rise in the ranks. I do think that HBAR will be a top 10, top 5 giant this cycle. To get into the top 10 right now, $23.3 billion. We're sitting at about almost $8 billion right now. So give or take almost like a 3x there. And then also we're looking at the top 5, $86 billion, which is insane because that's well over a 10x from here, which would take HBAR to almost $2 just trying to get into the top 5. Again, with everything that Hedera does have tied to it, with the biggest move of the cycle still brewing behind the scenes, aka alt season, and with the market waking up right now, I think that now is probably one of the best times to focus on the fundamentals behind some of these great projects that you are invested into. And in this case, Hedera has been absolutely killing it. They've been pushing updates every single week. They've been growing substantially, and the network and the ecosystem is also on fire, as you guys can see from the stats here. These are facts. We could see what's going on here. Stablecoin usage, stablecoin growth on Hedera is off the charts. We're starting to see a lot more DEX volume picking up. We're starting to see a little bit more activity across the board for the ecosystem, and also dev activity is there. We're starting to see a lot more dev activity around Hedera, which means building is happening, ecosystem expansion is happening, and what better time than now to see Hedera really in the spotlight the way that it has been. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.